Hey guys, it's Hillbilly Talk with Shane Simmons back again with another episode. And today's a very special episode because it's a very special day. It is my birthday, the one and only Shane Simmons. Thank you for those happy birthday wishes that will surely be coming. I'm going to talk a little bit about politics, so I expect to see exit stage left a good portion of folks, and I totally understand that, but I can't ignore it at this point because we're just barely over a week away from the hotly contested presidential election between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, as you all know. Surely to God, if you don't vote because you're just not informed enough to do it. I went out and voted today. I've got a few observations because a couple of people have asked me, is Virginia legitimately in play? A poll came out that was taken from October 22nd to 24th, so it's the most recent poll out of Virginia, and it showed, there's a company called Qantas, I'm not familiar with their polling, but it came out, and I think they polled 725 likely voters, and it came out 49 for Kamala, 48 Trump. So they're saying, is this state really legitimately in play? So I'll talk a little bit about that. And also some of the other things that I have noticed myself. So, getting right into that, right off the bat, let's talk about it. I went out and voted today, and I noticed, I can't believe how much enthusiasm there is to vote this year, especially early. Now, I know Trump and the Republicans tamped that down back in 2020 because, you know, the suspicion of voter fraud and so forth, even before the election took place, was, you know, thought this is not the way to do it in person. So, you know, he promoted that, and now this year they've done a little bit more of encouragement to get out, vote, drive those numbers up, and it's worked, definitely. I waited in line. I know this doesn't sound like a lot to most people, but about 15 minutes. And this was like, you know, wasn't a busy time of day or anything else. I was pretty shocked that it took me that long. And the parking lot was full. And it was just, you know, people were coming out to vote. And I was like, well, And I also noticed too, which is no surprise to anybody, that almost without exception, everybody going in there, at least that were obvious and vocal, were voting for Trump. I mean, I'm guessing it was probably 80 to 90% for Trump, and that's kind of stands to reason because in the last election, the county I voted in, which is Washington County, went about 75% for Trump, maybe a little bit higher than that for him, and in the low 20s for Biden. So I feel like it's going to stay somewhere in that neighborhood. Now, one thing I have noticed, which is different, it's kind of weird, is that there's quite a few more yard signs, bumper stickers, and whatnot for Harris and Walz, and which at first surprised me. I was like, oh, where's this enthusiasm coming from? But that's the thing, is that this year I think there was a few people, there's a pocket, it's a very small pocket here obviously, but there's a pocket of people that really are legitimately excited about Kamala Harris for whatever reason, if it's because she's a woman or her race, or you know, maybe they're just that fired up about abortion. I don't know, but there's people more passionate about her than they were Biden. But the thing that helped Biden so much was they weren't voting for Biden, they were voting against Trump. And you're not seeing that nearly as much. There's not as much passionate dislike for Trump, no matter what's being said about him right now. I just think that there's a lot more apathy, thinking, we lived through it once, and Biden's kind of sucked, so if he comes back, so be it. So I think the passion is down. And having said that, what surprises me is I think in these contiguous states that I'm in, I really believe that Trump will outperform most of the statewide candidates for other offices. There's unquestionably here in Virginia, he will outperform Hung Cao, the Senate candidate who's running against Tim Kaine. And I don't know, Cal's made some serious missteps by ignoring this area because obviously Southwest Virginia is tremendously Republican. And I don't know if he's made appearances here. I've not heard about him. He spent very little money on advertising, very few yard signs, any of that kind of stuff. So he's going to get stomped. I mean, there's no question about it. He does not have the enthusiasm behind him, which is a shame because what I've seen about him, seems to be an articulate guy, great backstory, military service, all that kind of thing. But he just has not, you know, you just don't know him. So there's no way to get enthused and excited about his candidacy. So a suspicion again that that's probably the party not wanting to spend money on him when they could spend it on more and better places. But kind of disappointing to see how little effort they're putting into ousting Tim Kaine. So I feel like Trump will definitely outperform Hung Cao. I'm not so sure either that I think Trump will outperform Morgan Griffith here too, and maybe by a lot. I think there's a lot of people, and I'm sadly one of those people that he's not as visible as he needs to be. He certainly, if he's doing a lot of good work, and maybe he is, but he's just not doing the good things to show that. He's not at the press releases. A lot of times his name's not attached to big job announcements and so forth. And then if you look at his social media, he presents, he's posing with Michael Phelps, you just don't like to see that. And he's been around a while. He came in on that Tea Party wave, which really changed a lot of the politics in this area. And but he came in on that Tea Party wave, and I just feel like, to me personally, it seems like he may be out of ideas, But the thing is, it's going to keep him in office. This is such a strongly Republican area that unless he gets taken out in the primaries, he's probably set for a while. Now, Karen Baker, she's given a spirited, made a run at it, and made a pretty good case for herself, but it's just such a Republican area. And I know a lot of good people, a lot of Republicans that I know that are really debating who to vote for. In fact, it came right down to it for me. I was like, I'm just not as big a Morgan Griffith fan as I should be, and I think it's a shame. I think it's his fault for not doing a good job of communicating his achievements, what his goals are, and he just seems to be more focused on the other side of the 9th District rather than down here. So I really feel like Trump will outperform him as well. I'll be shocked if he doesn't. Which is, again, you go back to 2020, even 2016, a lot of candidates were running from Trump. They didn't want to be attached to him because he was a drag on the ticket. But that is not the case by any stretch of the imagination here this year. In fact, I think he will outperform Griffith. I think he'll outperform Cal. I'm sure he'll do that. I feel like he's got a good chance. I mean, he's certainly going to outperform Robinson in North Carolina for the governor's, in the governor's race. Robinson's made a few missteps. I'm sure you're probably familiar with that if you keep up with politics. And so actually Trump in this area is much more popular than a lot of the other candidates that are running. Marsha Blackburn, I think he's more popular than her. So in Tennessee. So it's just, an interesting shift where Trump's popularity, you'd think there'd be a lot of fatigue about him. You'd think that people would be just tired of hearing and seeing and, listening and whatever, but it's really not waned at all here so much as you might expect. And but what does that mean for the state of Virginia, the Commonwealth of Virginia? I feel like, you look at in the past, Biden won this by right around 10%. It was 54-44. I don't think it's going to be anywhere near that kind of a gap. I feel like that there is enthusiasm is lacking for Kamala Harris in a lot of areas because she really doesn't have the biggest part of her constituency in this state, but she will do Northern Virginia. She'll crush it. And, you get up there to the Norfolk, all those places are just drowning with the Democrat strength. So, they usually poll 70-some% in that area, and versus the 80 to 85% Republicans here, but they just got so many more numbers. It's just not even doable. So my gut tells me that it'll be super close. I don't know that 49-48 is too far off, but I do feel like Harris might pull this one out. I would say a couple percentage points, maybe 1.5, and that'll probably be about it for that situation. Now, Cal, he's probably going to lose by 10, 15 maybe to Tim Kaine. Tim Kaine's not been particularly visible down this end of the state either. I don't think anybody's loving or thrilled with him, but he's a known name. He's been around. He's got the incumbency factor going for him, so there's that. Now, J.D. Vance is wildly popular here again all of a sudden. I think the Appalachian ties, the hillbilly elegy, he's relatable. He did so well in that debate. I think that's elevated him in this area. But I think, too, one thing that should be troublesome for Republicans is not so much this election. I feel like it's the people that Trump brought together is going to be very hard to hold because he really appeals to a lot of blacks. He appeals to Latinos. And as J.D. Vance or, whoever, Vivek Ramaswamy, certainly Nikki Haley does not have that kind of appeal to folks. I just it's kind of troublesome. It's like you don't know how this thing is going to go. But my assessment is that Virginia's probably not so much in play as it looks. But I wouldn't be stunned if he wins that. He's going to sweep a lot of states that nobody was expecting. New Mexico, some of those people, New Hampshire, some of those things he's going to pull out. But I feel like Trump, he's going to close the gap severely. I think he's probably not going to be able to pull it out in the end. But that's my take on Virginia. Hope you guys are having a good election season, and Halloween season is coming up. So a lot of people ask me why this part of the state is so Republican, and a lot of that's abortion. There's a lot of biblical people here that's just a single ticket vote, and I know a lot of people don't understand that, but even women here, if you're a Christian, you're pretty much morally opposed to abortion. That's a huge issue, and of course coal mining as well. The union is irrelevant. United Mine Workers Association is completely irrelevant here. It used to be the totally opposite numbers. You'd see 80-20, 70-30 Democrats to Republicans in Buchanan County, Tazewell County, but that's in Russell County. That's completely flipped now, Dickinson County. That's flipped now, and you'll see that it's Republicans that are just dominating, and mostly upon those types of issues, anti-immigration. It's hard to feel sympathy for people coming in here illegally when folks here are starving.